I'm Jeff Morris, and this is the Couchbase introduction for on National Cloud Database Day for Cloud Field Day. So thank you so much for inviting us and your attention. So what I want to really get into is a little bit about Couchbase's background. What our customers are looking to do is continue to deliver really killer application experiences to their customers and users. That means the applications need to be personalized. They need to be available anywhere, so it often incurs mobile considerations. They need to support real-time activities like real-time inventory and be very, very fast and responsive. When they deploy these applications, we see them now all starting to move into cloud kinds of deployments away from data centers, and even in many cases away from their own self-managed clouds. The things that they're telling us even right now are their cloud bills are becoming extraordinary. And then we want to help the developers be able to build better applications faster and support their best practices like CI/CD, and help them avoid building complex architectures that end up sprawling data. And I'll show you a couple of examples of that. So the core kind of problems that a customer comes to Couchbase for, and Couchbase is a NoSQL database. We're actually the original multi-model NoSQL database. We were formed from when two companies came together, the Membase, who was the curator of Memcached, so a very high performance in-memory key value store, and Couch1, the proprietors of CouchDB, a JSON document database. And so that blend of do in-memory performance things against JSON is the fundamental foundation of Couchbase. And so customers come to us looking for really high degrees of performance, right? They're seeing that their existing databases are failing the demands of their changing environments. Of course, 3 years ago, everybody went online, and that exacerbated the problem of needing a high-performance system to front-end, perhaps your website or your back-end transactional systems. They need the flexibility of a JSON database and of a multi-model system to supply great features to these applications. The features could include things like search or eventing capabilities, or again, as I said, high-speed access, or just simply the schema flexibility of accessing JSON rather, for the ability to, let's say, update an account profile. They like JSON rather than having to update a full-blown relational schema every time they want to make a change. There's certainly increases in mobile and IoT demand, and we have some uniquenesses there. And most recently is they're asking us to help them control their costs of the cloud. They're seeing those costs skyrocket, and I'll kind of explain why we see it's happening. So the most simplistic view to discern Couchbase between an analytic database like Snowflake and ourselves is we're primarily, right, let's say 95% oriented to supplying data to applications. So, you have an application talking to data running on infrastructure in its most simple sense. But oftentimes it's not that simple, right? We see applications getting built with a number of different databases all in one, or microservices accessing different databases all at the same time. They would use Memcached or Redis for a cache. They would use a document data store like ourselves, or Mongo or Dynamo, as as that account profile store, or as that product catalog kind of store. They would use relational databases to handle their transactionality. They'd like to use query tools from any number of different tools. They need geographic replication because they're geographically dispersed. So they might use Golden Gate or something like that for these systems. They want search, right? Because everybody likes the Google box. They want streaming and eventing, either through Kafka. They want to do analytics on their active data, on their application data, and of course, maybe they need to go mobile. So those are all core requirements that we're seeing of the applications that our customers are trying to support. So the good news is Couchbase supports all of those capabilities in a single system. As I mentioned, we're the original kind of multi-model database combining in-memory key value access with a JSON flexibility kind of a document store. But then we added to that. We added schema constructs. So if you need schema-like constructs, like a schema, a table, and a document as a row, our vernacular is a scope is a schema, collections are tables, and the documents, of course, are rows. And then you get greater flexibility out of those documents. You can have arrays in them and whatnot. But we've also added a native search to our environment. We've added operational analytics to our environment, so you can do aggregation, aggregate processing at the same time as having your application run, your website or whatnot. And we've added eventing, geographic both replication for cluster to cluster kind of replication, as well as synchronization to mobile devices and IoT devices. And we have our own mobile database called Couchbase Lite, which is basically the big database boiled down to something that runs on your Android or Apple or whatever embedded system you need. So the core things that set Couchbase apart are that, one, we're really fast. We support you with this memory-first design. We support resource scaling that I'll talk about later, our ability to take each one of those services and apply the right environmental resource to them for the application to perform at its peak. The replication and sync, ultra low latency kind of design, we're designed to be really, really fast all over the place through that memory-first design. Because we're fast, we tend to be less costly than our competitors. So in this era where the economic conditions are really driving cost controls as being brought to the forefront, we have a really compelling story there. I've already mentioned the versatility of being a JSON store with all of these multi-model services, and they're all composable. You can mix and match and use the ones that you need. And then because we support SQL++ as our query language, along with those other things that relational databases do, like ACID transactions, like cost-based optimization, like user-defined functions, or support for their favorite software development kits for 12 different programming languages, it's really easy to get involved in Couchbase. And in fact, if you know SQL, as my colleague Tom will show you, it's really easy to get on board with Couchbase. So that whole problem of this polyglot persistent style of design is actually getting perpetuated still through your cloud providers. So they benefit because they sell a lot more electricity if you're running a lot more databases and pieces of software. So in this particular design of a retail store, right, I'm showing 5 different databases here. Well, my argument to my customers is get rid of those 5 databases, right? You can do all of that with Couchbase. And in doing so, you can eliminate a lot of redundant infrastructure. You can eliminate a lot of redundant data and data set that you're moving around or replicating between these data stores, and really simplify and reduce the complexity of your architecture and of your environment. Now, that has some great benefits, right? Your developers can work faster. You have less duplication and sprawl, as I mentioned. It's easier to scale. It's easier to maintain. And it lowers your costs because it drives down your software license costs, as well as your infrastructure costs. So my customer from Broadjump, Phil Lapercio, he says it's really weird. This is like the trifecta, right? To get more features in delivery in less time and save money all at the same time. And that's really the fundamental value proposition of Couchbase. So as I mentioned, we have distributed processing both at the macro level, replication amongst clusters in different data centers or different cloud regions. And we also have mobile synchronization. And what really sets our synchronization apart is not only the fact that I can sync to a device, but I can sync among devices. Right? If I have a Bluetooth network between a tablet and a phone, I can synchronize there without the internet. And that's a really, really unusual feature to be able to offer. And I'll show you a bunch of use cases where that comes into play. So Couchbase Mobile is our embedded database. It's got bidirectional synchronization baked into it. It does delta syncing, so it only syncs changes to, from the device back to the main environment, and it runs on any platform. It too supports half a dozen different programming languages to build around. And finally, here's our architecture of Capella App Services. That's our cloud database as a service. That's at my centralized cloud level. I can synchronize out to edge nodes, and then I can synchronize again down to devices themselves or among those devices with the peer-to-peer synchronization capability. So our product portfolio looks like this. It's Capella is our fully managed database as a service. Easiest way to jump into Couchbase, supported on all 3 clouds, major clouds, and then we have Couchbase Enterprise, which is our binary or Kubernetes-enabled environment to build your own and manage your own environment. So Capella's fully managed. It's got great performance. I do benchmarks all the time. I'll show you that in a little bit. High amount of features that we're able to offer to our customer base. Great enterprise level security, all in the same singular package. Capella is about a year and a half old now, and it's been growing very, very steadily. And I'll talk in a little bit about some news that we announced today on National Cloud Database Day. So, all right, as I wind this particular section down, right, we want to help customers reduce the cost of operations by replacing multiple databases and eliminate more than half of the infrastructure that stuff is running on. And in fact, more than half of my customers told me when I surveyed them through Tech Validate that that's what happened. They saved more than half on their infrastructure. So developers can write better applications faster and have them less complex all at the same time. And they'll save money, they'll save time, they'll build better applications all the way around. So why we end up winning, it's that performance is the primary driver our customers tell us. Multi-model access to JSON for complexity reduction, our mobile capabilities, the ease of our SQL++ query language, or the reference implementation of that, and then demonstrably lower TCO all the way around.
What for the enterprise piece, what does Kubernetes enabled mean? As in Couchbase is running on Kubernetes for the enterprise version?
So you have your choice. You can deploy the enterprise edition as a binary itself and set it up, run directly on Linux. But we also have a containerized, automated version. We call it Couchbase Autonomous Operator. That's all Kubernetes packaged, but it's also got about 20 different other CNCF project-oriented tools around it, like Prometheus and FluentD and things like that to help the overall automation process there.
Okay, two more questions. So that's just with the enterprise version, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and when you're deploying that, is that something that's managed for you, like via SaaS, or you're deploying it in your own Kubernetes environment? It just comes packaged, whether it's with a Helm chart or whatever the case may be. It comes prepackaged for you to have the ability to deploy on your cluster.
It's the latter. The Couchbase Capella environment is nearly a bare metal, super high performance for iteration of Couchbase, where we're not managing it through Kubernetes, but you're getting all of the management capabilities that a database as a service offers. But if you want to operate and run that environment yourself, the Autonomous Operator Kubernetes-based package is great. But it's something that you would end up, it's a self-managed kind of environment for yourself.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Do you have any minimum requirements as far as like presentation of Flash? Like obviously most of the key value store stuff, the RocksDBs of the world are meant to live in Flash, as so is there performance penalties because we're running on Kubernetes and who knows what's underneath it? Do you have any sort of minimum requirements for customers to run it?
Yes, we certainly publish the minimum requirements. I don't have them off the top of my head, but you're right in that there are performance penalties when you're running extra software alongside the database, right? And that's what we found when we built the environment ourselves originally. So, and one of the drivers for why we constructed Capella the way we did was to really optimize it for performance.